It's been over a year and a half with the Twister XTs. Likewise, the Twister SEs I put 3x110 frames on. Overall, my impression of the skate, it's very good for people who do fitness skating, people who do urban skating, and with the right frame, you could do slalom with it. It has no particular advantages over skates you may find from other brands. When I'm with other inline skaters and they're wearing FRs, Sebas, K2s, whatever it may be, they typically also find their skates pretty comfortable. And I think it's just a matter of who you go with for the first time. You find the fit for your foot and you stick with that brand. For me, I like the aesthetic of the skates. I think the comfort is pretty good. They've been very durable, easy to maintain, and for that I have no qualms with picking these up. We'll go over some of the particular features of the skate. So first up, I want to go over the liner. Right now you can't detect it. The liner is super smelly. Recommendation, if you're gonna skate in these as frequently as I do, take the liner out of the boot when you're done after a session. That'll help it dry more evenly. And likewise, at a certain point you're probably going to need a wash. Now these are machine washable, and if you do cool water, mild soap, and then let it air dry, that does the trick. I sometimes just put these in a bucket and do it separately with shoes I may be cleaning. So that's another option for you. That'll help retain the durability and the condition of the liner. It's a rather soft fabric, and over time it's going to wear, kind of as you see. It'll form these slight, almost like pilling, and it's not a big deal, but over time, as the fabric abrades, it will wear out and get holes. So to maintain it, cleaning it every once in a while, remove dirt, and also minimize the odor that may build up. Overall, they've held up pretty well, with no super aggressive cleaning or maintenance schedule for the liner. There are some minor elements of damage, kind of hard to see, but there's points of contact within the boot that abrade at this fabric along the ankle. And this is the left boot, so this would be towards the center of your body, and you can see these have pretty aggressive wear patterns. Nothing significant that affects the performance of the skate or the comfort, but it is an area where you may develop a hole before other areas. Likewise, you can see here, it's coming from the tongue, etc. The grommets, over time, they're probably going to start corroding. Pretty minor, and it doesn't really affect the functionality, but it's something to keep in mind. The insoles do pretty well. Not really any sort of shock absorption, but they do a pretty good job as far as keeping support around the arch and the heel. And I've only watched these a few times, but they do a pretty decent job. Though mind that there are holes both at the bottom of the liner as well as the boot of the skate. So inevitably, if you're going through really dusty sections or if there's water on the ground, you're probably going to have some moisture enter into the liner and into this cavity, affecting the insole and possibly your socks. It's happened to me pretty rarely, but it does occur. Now these liners come in these days $110 for a replacement, so I would try and keep these in good condition. They've lasted me this long without any major damage, but I imagine over time you may end up with a liner that's not usable and a pretty big expense. So maintain it as long as you can, and it'll do you just fine. No real qualms there. I think maybe some more padding on the insole that it comes stock with, but that's sort of personal preference. And now onto the boot itself. These are the XTs with the standard flat 4x80 frame. It's performed well. No real issues there. Now I still actually have the black wheels, the hydrogen SEs that these came with. I've just gone with the white ones because it's easier to have two sets of wheels than having to rotate one all the time. These also right now have some Black Panther ceramic bearings rather than the twin cams. They've performed pretty well. No real qualms there. Easier to maintain. I find they don't need to be cleaned as often or need as much lubricant. Now the boot itself, it's held up pretty well. There's minor abrasion across the toe, a little bit at the ankle. There's some on the bottom plate along the frame, particularly the inside here, but nothing serious. This is, I think, made out of thermopolyurethane, TPU. It's held up pretty well. It's pretty standard material for these hard boots. One thing to note, areas where there is a lot of movement, you're going to develop some minor wear patterns. So between the cuff and the lower boot, there's some there. And likewise up here, you'll see some. I mention it because these areas can squeak a bit, especially when the skate's been sitting for a while. An easy fix is taking some skate wax and just applying it to that surface. That usually does the trick. So on the inside, there's nothing really to report. It gets dirty because it has that screen and then these two front holes at the toe. Meant for ventilation. I don't think they really benefit that much, if I'm honest. But it does let a good amount of dirt and sometimes moisture into the boot, liner, etc. But it doesn't really affect it significantly, so I don't think they need to change that anytime soon. The cuff bolts, a little hard to see, but they do get a bit of damage, and to some degree they develop corrosion. Doesn't seem to be significant, but noticeable, and it may affect the liner, so that's why you want to keep those clean. And likewise, pull the liner out of the boot when you're done. That'll minimize that electrolyte solution, which is your sweat, just sitting on that hardware. I think the other boot had a crack. I'll show you. It's insignificant, but something to note. I have, for a few months now, been running these lock laces. I don't think I can recommend these for this particular application just because this skate, like many, uses like metal grommets, and so it just abrades away at this lace, which isn't a big deal, but it doesn't look very nice, and I don't see it lasting super long, more than a few months of significant use. But I changed it because it makes it super convenient to put on the skate, take it off, especially when you're doing like an initial warm-up and you want your feet to swell up a little bit. This just makes it a lot easier to take the skate off, put it back on. Gives you less of a You're not saying, well, the skate takes forever to take on and put back on, I'm just going to leave it. This reduces it, makes it super convenient. Now the other boot did have a little bit of damage. Also, you may notice this one's missing the cuff strap. I have it. It came loose one day. I think it was this bolt came loose and fell out, and I just haven't replaced it. I was able to find the bolt, thankfully, but that may signify to you how significant that is. To me, it's more of a convenience feature, but it's not wholly necessary to getting a secure fit. Similar damage on this boot at the toe, a little bit on the ankle, and also some on the bottom. But the major damage I'm talking about, or sort of abnormal damage, is right here. A little hard to see, but this is right at the ankle of the boot. And there's a slight crack. It's not a big deal. Doesn't impact the structural integrity of the boot, but it is noticeable. They could maybe benefit from putting sort of a keyhole or some other cutout here to reduce what I guess is a stress concentration, but not super significant. In fact, I only noticed it because I was doing some maintenance one day. As far as actually riding in it, it doesn't have any impact. But yeah, that's the skate. Performs well, it's comfortable. I would say it's recommended. There are a lot of other options out there. Perhaps you find them more comfortable. For my purposes, I don't see a need to actually get a different boot or liner. At some point, I may get a different frame to do some slalom stuff. Being that these are flat frames, there's items like the new Rollerblade Crossfire, Wizard skate frames. That allows you to have a rocker setup, which gives you slightly different motion. It's more similar to ice skates. So maybe I'll try those someday, but for now I'm trying to work on some other elements in skating. So that's my review, long-term review of these skates. No significant changes from my opinion when I first got them last year. Let me know if you have any questions.